everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Aux Fiends. I am your co-host, Mateo. Today, I'm joined by Rishabh. Rishabh, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
This is episode 6. Really quick, if you're not familiar with this podcast, I want to say we just go through track by track an entire album, by one of our choices, and we fiend a lot about the choices. But anyways, if you haven't listened to this album recently, please go do that. Stop the podcast, do whatever, go listen, or at least at least be very familiar if you haven't recently listened to it. Anyways, let's get right into it. The history and what album we are listening to. Rishabh, take it away.
All right, everybody. So if you listened to the last episode, you know that today's album pick is Summer Days and, in parentheses, and Summer Nights. This is by the Beach Boys. And what I wanted to do, Mateo, is I don't know if we've done this for a while, but I wanted to just go ahead and read off the Wikipedia page. And I'll try and go pretty fast here just to give you a sense of who the Beach Boys kind of are. So the group's original lineup consisted of brothers Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson, and their cousin Mike Love and friend Al Jardine. They were distinguished by their vocal harmonies, adolescent-oriented themes, and musical ingenuity. And they drew on the music of older pop vocal groups, 1950s rock and roll, and R&B to make that unique sound. And what we've got here in terms of genre mix, we've got rock, pop, surf, and psychedelia. So that's basically what the Beach Boys are kind of about. And the album that we're looking at today has sort of an interesting history as well. So this is Summer Days and Summer Nights. The album previous to this was called The Beach Boys Today. That was the album they'd done right before Summer Days and Summer Nights. And it was actually a pretty big failure on their end. And the reason is that at the time for that album, the Beach Boys were trying to move their sound away from some of the things that I just talked about in that Wikipedia page. They were trying to go away from that summery sound and the sort of like adolescent themes or like kind of like those kind of summery teen themes that they were known for, and kind of go to a more mature sound. And Brian Wilson, I think, who's the front man of the entire group, he was known for his musical ingenuity, and he really wanted to experiment more with the Beach Boys. So the Beach Boys Today as an album was meant to be more experimental. I think unsurprisingly, the album did fail. I think at the time, I don't think people were ready for that sort of a record from the Beach Boys. And so as a result of that, maybe from pressure from the record company and wanting to go back to the traditional roots, that's what Summer Days and Summer Nights was kind of born out of. So going back to what they were sort of known for. And originally, Help Me Rhonda and California Girls, which are two songs we'll definitely be talking about as we go down the album, those were the first two to be released as singles. And of course, they both did very well. They're very much in tune with what I think people even today recognize the Beach Boys as. And then along with Surfin' USA, which was a previous album, Summer Days and Summer Nights remains the group's highest charting studio album in the US. So It's sort of an interesting thing, Mateo, right? Because this is them going back to something that they wanted to sort of get away from almost.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's very interesting. Wait, you said that this was the highest charting in the US, even compared to Pet Sounds and Smiley Smile and stuff?
Yeah, I think along with Surfin' USA. And that's actually interesting too, right? Because Pet Sounds is a little bit more, it's not like this. This is like the most breezy album ever, right? I mean, not getting too far.
Yeah.
But I think Pet Sounds honestly it's more musically weighty. And I think, and I'll talk about that too when we talk about the album. I do think that Summer Days, Summer Nights, while the lyrics are whatever they are and the music is what it is, there is actually more ingenuity happening here than expected. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. So
we'll get into it. I'll just leave it at, I'm very surprised this charted higher than Pet Sounds.
Really, I think Pet Sounds is not as radio friendly, and I feel like this album is much more radio friendly. But that probably gives you a little bit of a sense of the background of the Beach Boys. And obviously, the Beach Boys are a very storied legacy band. Definitely can't go into every nitty-gritty detail about the history, but I suggest you kind of do some reading up on them. There's a lot and I mean a lot. It's a very dense Wikipedia page, and they've done musically very interesting stuff. And if you really get into the lives of the members, some interesting stuff. Brian Wilson, interesting. Well, let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Without further ado, I think Mateo. I just want to ask you, what expectations did you have when I said the Beach Boys? What were you expecting? Was this album pretty much on par with your expectations in terms of what you were expecting to hear?
No, okay. Well, what I was expecting to hear,
Yeah.
sort of.
Okay.
Maybe not in a good way.
Whoa.
I'm not the biggest fan. You've probably listened to a lot more Beach Boys than me, but I grew up listening to like Pet Sounds and stuff like that. So I'd say maybe higher expectations, and I was definitely excited that you picked something I was definitely not against listening to going in. I'll say that. So my expectations definitely were high. I don't know necessarily. We'll get into if they were met. We'll get into
Yeah, let's get right into it. Actually, Mateo. So, while you're talking about this, let's go ahead and start you off with the first track, "The Girl from New York City." What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, literally my first thoughts after listening to this song were like, do all Beach Boys songs like sound the same? To me, "The Girl from New York City" was classic Beach Boys. It was very beachy to me. I can kind of see how this song transformed their style, or like felt like the beginning. Not necessarily the catalyst, but it felt like it showcased the beginning of their style that you can see and hear later on in like Smiley Smile and Pet Sounds and their albums. You can see later on,
Really?
I will say. I mean, you did say this was kind of coming back to their original sound, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised you say that, actually.
I haven't listened to all their past albums, so maybe I'm taking kind of the wrong step there by saying that. But I felt like at least "The Girl from New York City" sounded like an early version, definitely, of their later albums. But with that, I'd say overall this song was kind of mediocre compared to the rest of like the Beach Boys discography. Yeah.
Interesting.
What'd you think?
I was surprised. I was just surprised to hear you say that you thought this track was like more like Pet Sounds. I feel like this one's very like just the way that it's done. It feels more like a radio kind of Surfin' USA type of track to me. I would say it's not quite as like, I think Surfin' USA, like as a track that's very lightweight. I think there's a lot more happening here, even though it's only like a minute long. But I love this track. Unsurprising, but I love this track. I love this album. And the chorus is just so great. And what I love about the Beach Boys is like just the harmonies. Like you can't really, I don't know, this is my thing. I feel like the Beach Boys are golden standard for combining pop and rock and sort of this surf sound that I don't know if it's really been done quite at that level again. Or I will say this, I think they really set up that precedent for, bands who tried to do that again in the future, right? I think this track in particular, I think it sets up the splashy sound that the entire album is going to have, save for a few tracks. Amazing percussion, piano, guitar, and I just love the way that the Beach Boys mix their tracks. I think and by the way, we listened to I don't know, Mateo, I'm pretty sure you did too, but I listened to the stereo version of this album.
I think it was a stereo version. I listened to whatever the remastered on Spotify was. I think that was a stereo.
I think there's a mono version too. I chose to listen to the stereo version just because I love the audio mixes and engineering that's done on Beach Boys tracks. And I think this track really showcases a lot of the great engineering. And it's not even the best track, and I'm already so excited about it because I think this is a phenomenal song, and it's just so much fun to listen to and so well done with such great vocals. I would not say it's mediocre by any angle, Mateo, but I feel like Beach Boys is one of those things where, like, I don't know how much we're gonna fiend because it's the tracks, like you said, are extremely similar for the most part, especially on this album for sure. That it's kind of like, if you don't appreciate the sound that they're going for, it's going to be hard to really love any of these tracks. But if you're really into it, I think.
Let's just say we don't want to get
good opener.
Too ahead of ourselves by saying we don't know how much we will fiend, because I think I think, especially when we get into it, there will be some fiending. I'd say. I
Yeah.
actually I write my review for each song as soon as I like while I am listening to it, and then right
Yep.
after it's done.
Yeah.
Let's just say if I wrote it complete after the entire album was done, I think, yeah, maybe this song would have been a little higher up than mediocre. But
Okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bad thing because I have a lot of songs that I really like coming up. Girl from New York City is definitely good, but it's there's some that I really enjoy on here. So
anyway, was that all you had to say about the girl from New York City? Anything else?
yeah, I think so. I think, and also I want to say that obviously, like a lot of the Beach Boys tracks to a listener today, lyrically they can feel very dated, right? Because
yes, 1,000% yes, very dated.
Things don't age well on here for sure. Musically, I would say things have aged wonderfully. Lyrically, I think I'd be a little astounded to hear some of those lyrics in a song today. It would be a little strange and a little bit weird. I think this is definitely the type of lyrics that you would have found in a 60s song. I mean, there's a lot of things on here. We can talk a little bit about that later too. I do want to talk about that a little bit. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. I'll start this one off. Amusement Parks USA. So this is not the one that I would listen to most casually. It's definitely one that you kind of have to listen to it intentionally, and a lot of that has to do because has so much sampling done in it, and like a lot of that soundscape element. So if you're not familiar with this track, I would suggest you check it out though, because I think it's also one of their most ingenious tracks on this album for sure. There's a lot of stuff going on. Vocals as usual are great. But Mateo, I can hear you groaning, and I'm getting nervous.
There's gonna be a lot of groaning.
I mean, how can you look? I said it's not a casual listen, but is it a phenomenal track still? Yes. The use of the amusement park sounds as part of the songs, creating that soundscape. It's a perfect Beach Boys. Like, it has all the Americana staples to it too that the Beach Boys are known for having. And honestly, Mateo, I can't review this further without hearing your thoughts. Go for it. I want to hear how.
And here's the thing. Literally the first thing I wrote down. Now I know why you're saying it's the perfect like Beach Boys Americana song. Because the first thing I wrote down was, dude, is this just a ripoff or like a parody of Surfin' USA? This sounds exactly like it. It sounds like the exact same song.
They're going back to those roots, right? Like they're going back to that.
You don't want to
poppy summer rock sound.
It's like the exact same instruments, kind of the exact same like cadence as Surfin' USA. I feel like they just like scrambled the lyrics and the words around from Surfin' USA, but they talked about amusement parks instead of USA. Like they talk about the locations, they talk about amusement parks instead of like beaches or surfing or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just think this is the worst version of it. To me, this felt incomplete. I didn't like the live, monologue or whatever was happening midway through. Maybe that's what you liked or something. I didn't like it, though.
Yeah, I kind of do. I do like that part. I will say...
to me, it felt like, honestly, like an interlude in the song. I know we always joke around about interludes, but to me, it sounded like an interlude in the middle of a song. I don't know. Overall, I felt like if it kept its Surfin' USA vibe throughout, which it very much had, but I felt like it only kept the bad sides of it, I think it would have been better, but definitely not better than the original. That's what I had to say about this song.
That's crazy. I'll be honest, I thought this was going to be one of the tracks you would love. So this is surprising to me. Okay.
It just felt like a copy, like a bad copy and paste, like that meme where it's like, copy my homework, but change some of it up.
Yeah.
That's honestly what it felt like. It's not an absolute terrible song. I mean, I love Surfing USA, but this Amusement Parks USA, come on, Beach Boys. I've heard you guys do better. You guys have done better. This wasn't trying. It really wasn't.
You think Surfing USA as a track is better than this one? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for sure. But also because of Surfin' USA, it has this legendary status now that I think a lot of tracks like Amusement Parks USA kind of get into the fold of the Beach Boys. It's maybe not as well heard. And I'm not saying this is like their best track, but I think there's some cool stuff happening here. I do like the vocal like monologue sample that you're referring to. I like that it's the soundscape. I like the way they use like the different amusement park sounds to really integrate it musically. I think that's one of the best parts of the track. And I think honestly, I disagree with you here as well, Mateo, that I think it fits in perfectly with the rest of the album because it doesn't necessarily have to be about surfing, right? It's also like just summer, right? In general, especially maybe summer in the States, like, you know, that the way that it is, at least in the 60s, and getting to those Americana roots, I think it's cool.
I mean, talking about like outdated lyrics though too. I have
yeah,
the genius.
let's talk about it.
Like, okay, they're talking about parachutes at Riverview Park. That doesn't even exist anymore. POP, Pacific Ocean Park, doesn't exist anymore. That was from like 1958 to 1967. The only one is Disneyland. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Jersey Steel Pier, no. Like, I'll give it to you. It fits on the
That's
album.
the charm. That's the charm. You get to hear the names of all these places. You get to hear the names of all these places. That's not a good
thing, though. But is this honestly my first listen through? Because I listened to this song twice, specifically this song twice. My first listen through, I thought this was an ad. Like, I thought this would be like a commercial for amusement parks. Like, they're just taking Surfin' USA and just making it like an ad, like for all these like American like amusement parks all around, you know?
Isn't that like that's like the charm of the song is that it captures such a wide array of like what is like an American amusement park, and then getting that into one song. I think that's what they're going for. Yeah, look, I agree with you that it felt
cheese. It felt cheesy. It didn't feel like I wanted to
listen to it. The Beach Boys are kind of cheesy. I mean,
yeah, they are, but
especially on this album, right? Because like Pet Sounds,
done cheesy right. They've done cheesy right though. They know how to do it right. This song just didn't hit for me. Don't get me wrong. There are still some songs I actually did like on this album. This just was not one of them.
All right,
like all the things you liked, it took me out of the song. That monologue took me out.
Yeah, it's like, definitely not my look. Spoiler alert! It's not my favorite one, but it's good, and it's not. Also, I agree here. It's not the one that maybe it's the one that I often skip because of the monologue. But if I feel like I will listen to the whole way through and sort of enjoy what they're doing there, I think it's unique. So anyway, it is unique.
This is the opposite. No, this is the opposite of unique.
Look, like, I know what you're saying.
I don't know.
I get that it's on brand with stuff they've done before. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's musically interesting and well engineered, you know, and the fact that I really do enjoy listening to this one makes me feel very strongly about it.
I guess that's fair. Honestly, maybe I'll have to do a re-listen, a third listen of Amusement Parks USA.
Of a 2-minute track. By the way,
yeah,
none of these tracks are more than I think everything is less than 3 minutes.
Sure. How long was this album? I don't want to talk about the whole album yet, but this was like 26 minutes, right?
26.
This was pretty quick.
Yeah,
it was quick.
Fast. The way it should be.
For once, I agree.
But not for the same reason, I feel.
Yes, for this album, it definitely should be quick.
Because, in a good way, right? Because it's like the summer passes quickly in that way, right, Mateo? That's what you're thinking. You're thinking about the artistic.
I'm passing this quickly. I'm done talking about Amusement Parks USA. I'm gonna start. Because it's my stuff's quick. I have to talk about the third track. It's
on you.
Then I Kissed Her. Boring. I didn't care for it. It felt like a song they would honestly use in Shrek, but like that song wouldn't even like land, you know, when like Shrek's trying to like.
It's on the bonus CD for the Shrek soundtrack.
Yeah, like it's like we just got cut from the final cut of the movie. Like the only interesting thing I saw was on Genius as well. Is like I guess this is a cover, like a rendition of "Then He Kissed Me" by the Crystals, which came out a couple years before that.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I don't even remember anything about this song. Like, it was boring. I don't know. Rishabh, what were your thoughts about Then I Kissed Her?
I really like it. I think it's pretty much one of the really strong tracks on here, in my opinion. I love the guitars that's used here. Again, like I don't know, Mateo, I don't know how you're not recognizing how good the melodies and harmonies are on Beach Boys tracks. It's just I don't know, vocally for me, the Beach Boys, what they accomplish, it's sometimes, I swear, better than what the Beatles have done sometimes. I'm just gonna put that out there. I think the falsetto notes that they hit here,
No
the
way.
way they combine pop, that was a
Better
late
than the
reaction.
Beatles?
That was such a late reaction. I kept going because I was like, I paused for you to freak out, but you didn't. So I was like, okay.
If this was like a different Beach Boys album, maybe I'd give it one or two tracks better than some of the Beatles like worst stuff.
But some of the Beatles' worst stuff is bad. Come on.
Sure,
Okay, not
I
this
guess.
song. Not this song.
This song isn't
Clarify.
better than the worst stuff.
Look, here's the thing. Twist and Shout is great. I'm not gonna harp on that. Like that's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's why I'm saying that's a fact. But are there songs similar to Twist and Shout that are maybe on this record and a few other Beach Boys records? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Have they gone underrated? Yeah, I think so too. So I wouldn't say it's not this one, but it's one of the best stuff.
Not this song. Like, have you even listened to the original? I even gave like a 30-second listen to the Crystals original version of this song, and it was 10 times better.
Okay. Let me clarify.
Like,
I think the vocals on here are great, which, by the way, I think they're great on pretty much every single track here. But I specifically,
Beach Boys, of course, they're gonna be like not bad. The vocals,
yeah.
Well, I'll get into one song later on this album. Terrible vocals, and but we'll get into that later.
Okay, I have one that has subpar vocals. I do have one. I don't know if it's gonna be the same one. It might be. Okay. I doubt it though. But I do like this track. I do like this track a lot. Again, combining pop, rock, surf, and yes, the tracks mesh into each other, but not to the point where like I can't differentiate. Like I can definitely differentiate which tracks I like on here. I passionately like this album. What can I say?
See, I can differentiate like what songs I like on this album. Because it's few and far between. I can't really. It was a hard time until I heard one specific song to differentiate like which song I hated the most on this album.
By the way, like
that's took me a long time.
I want to clarify to my listeners: there's no rule, like on our podcast, there's no rule that Mateo has to hate my pick or that I have to hate his pick. These past few episodes, that's been happening naturally. Like I genuinely kid you not. Like we don't discuss this, we don't plan this.
There's no planning, no discussion. Everything's a surprise. Like I want to say this: I am literally not amping this up. This is how I usually would actually talk to Rishabh if we just talked about an album. And I want to emphasize this again. I thought I was gonna like love this.
I thought you might like it. Yeah, I thought you might love it too. Honestly,
don't get me wrong. There's a couple I actually do like later on, a couple tracks.
Okay.
But we'll have to see if that's enough to give it a good rating later on.
Okay. I think we can move on to the next one. Salt Lake City. So this is the one. Okay, I'm just gonna go right in because this is a weird one. Why is there a song about Utah in the most California album ever? That being said, I really like this track as well.
What?
Yes.
You like it?
Yes, I do.
I do like it. Why?
It continues everything that's been going well in this album so far. And I like how they use the horns and piano in this one too. I think the subject matter is a little weird and like to randomly shift over to Salt Lake City when most of the time we're either talking about, the United States at large or maybe only California. Yeah, you had New York City, but there's still like a lot of California references. So it's a little bit strange. And I had to write this lyric down because how many times today do you hear the following line? And this is an actual lyric from the song. And I quote, "It's got the grooviest kids." End quote. That's an amazing line.
Yeah, from Salt Lake City. Amazing line, I think not, dude.
By amazing, I mean that in a slightly sarcastic
amazingly
way.
Bad, yeah.
I think it's funny, but I still don't think it brings down the track. I think it's a great track.
Dated. That's all I can say.
Okay, Mateo, let's hear it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, okay. Dude, if you thought I went on Amusement Parks USA, if you thought I went hard on that song, this sounds just like another Amusement Park USA ripoff. And Amusement Park USA is just a ripoff of Surfing USA. This is just, you said it fine. This is like just a weird ad for Utah now.
But
Like,
I mean,
come
yes,
on, dude.
I'm not bogging the song down for that. I think it's funny that it's like
No, I
it's
thought it was
weird that there's a Utah track and that
weird.
they love people in Utah, but it's still a
That's
good
fine.
track.
That's fine. But I disagree. I thought there was honestly weak lyrics. Not even
Okay,
talking about
okay,
how baited it is.
fair enough.
I
Well,
thought
look,
it was weak instrumental.
yeah,
To me, it was just overall kind of another boring song that just tried to be a repeat of a repeat of a repeat. Like,
yeah.
you can
Lyrically, I
only
would
copy and
say,
paste so much.
yeah, lyrically, I would say for sure, like a lot of stuff like doesn't age well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's from the '60s, but still, a lot of it doesn't age well. That being said, like Salt Lake City in particular, I agree with you. Weird track, but a good track. And in fact, I wrote down this is another Beach Boys hit for me. I don't know. I like this track, and I also I want to mention without going too far. I love the order of the tracks so far. I think there's a little bit at the end that I can discuss a little bit, but in general, I think I like this album so much.
Okay. Okay,
I think Salt Lake
Rashad.
City is a good track. I might be more passionate about this than you were for the Mollusk, honestly.
Maybe you are.
Maybe I am.
I don't know.
Which brings us
I don't know.
which brings us into our next track. And look, Mateo, I thought about this for a long time. Okay. I was really split between this track and one other track. And I think it's pretty easy to guess what the other track will be, but we'll get there.
Mhm.
But I just want to confirm, but like this is my favorite song on the album, and I'm talking
Ooh,
about
okay.
"Girl Don't Tell Me." What
Yeah,
did you think?
go right in.
I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna let you
Oh,
go this
you
time.
want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I actually thought it was a good change of pace.
Yes.
I liked the mood and instrumental kind of change. Actually, fine with the lyrics. I think honestly, if every song was at least this good on the entire album, this
Mhm.
album, from me personally, would have a pretty good rating. Now,
Hmm.
I'll say I can. I guess I can see. I mean, wait. I'm just still interested why this is your favorite. I guess I can kind of see it. But this felt the most different, at least so far that we've listened to, of change of
For
pace wise
me,
in the songs.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
I'll say this. It's pretty poppy, but for me, what always gets me with this song, it's not the instrumentation, it's the chorus. I love the chorus.
Mm,
It's such a like the rest of the song isn't super poppy. Obviously, it's Beach Boys, so everything's kind of pop rock. But the
yeah.
chorus is like so core pop that I feel like there's like singer songwriters who are in pop today, or maybe even rock, honestly, who could learn a thing or two from how good this chorus is sung, how well it's sung, and how well it's written, and how well the song is arranged. I just love this song and the way that it goes start to finish and the way that the chorus is used, I think is terrific. Also, because you don't really hear the chorus until the very end, if I remember correctly. And
Hmm.
so that kind of really just adds to it a little bit or makes me more excited for when that chorus finally comes in. Just love the vocals on this one. It's Beach Boys. You can't hate the vocals on any track. Well, Mateo, you mentioned there was one, and I will get there. But
There's definitely one.
yeah,
Yes.
I will say between this and another track, which I think should be extremely obvious, it was between this and another one that I was pretty close between. And I'll say it was a very close race. And I'm not sure if I was really fully decided until we even started, but I feel very strongly about this one. It's my favorite track.
The
Mateo,
worst
do you have any
choice.
thoughts? Further thoughts on
Um,
this one?
no further thoughts. I didn't hate "Girl Don't Tell Me," but like, hmm, I guess I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Why it's your favorite track? I know. I'm sure I know what it was between for your other
Yeah.
favorite. So I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see why that one wasn't your
Mhm.
favorite later on. But that one will have to wait until we get to that song later on.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can
So
start us off on Help Me
I'm gonna
Rhonda, the next
hope you
track.
Rhonda. Yeah. Catchy. I liked it. I'm sure when it originally came out, like it was on all the jukeboxes going around.
Yeah,
You know, like you said, this was one of the other singles, right,
it
of this
was. It
album.
was. Yes.
I get it. It's very kind of poppy, and I get why it was a single.
Hmm. It's
Honestly,
interesting.
I don't have
Yeah,
too
go
much
ahead.
other than that to say about "Help Me, Rhonda." That was
Mhm.
catchy, but go ahead.
Well, it's interesting because I was going to say, if I have my facts correct, I'm pretty sure "Help Me, Rhonda" was more popular as a single than "California Girls," which is funny because obviously
Oh,
"California Girls" is one of, I guess, actually probably one of the most listened
well, I'd
to.
say one of the most.
Yeah, I think
Definitely,
"Surfing USA," "Good Vibration." This is so many, right?
yeah.
But anyways, honestly, Help Me Rhonda, I listened to it. At first, I was not really feeling it. I was enjoying it, but I was kind of going to the side of maybe this is a little too repetitive or a little less musically interesting. And I'll still somewhat stand by that statement, but there's like a piano section, which it's just so good that for me, like the instrumentation really picks up there. And I would say a pretty harmless track, not something that really stands out to me, but in the context of the album, I could definitely listen to this, and I think it leads decently well into the next track too. And it's kind of sandwiched between two incredibly strong tracks, right? So it's kind of a lull between two very good tracks, but I still think it's a nice little segue. Anything else,
Uh,
Madame?
oh, I can announce the next song. It's the one probably that we just mentioned and that everyone really
Yeah.
knows is "California Girls."
Yeah.
Shab, what are your thoughts on this?
If it isn't obvious yet, obviously it was between this and "Girl Don't Tell Me" for my favorite track.
Yeah,
Um, Again, lyrically does not age well. Track wise, musically wise, I will say this is again the gold standard for pop, rock, surf sound,
yeah,
everything California related sound. The way the audio is engineered here, the way
yes,
that the vocals are, the way that they use overlapping vocals. The Beach Boys, this is their legendary track, right? I'm still in shock that at the time "Help Me Rondo" was more popular. I guess
yeah.
"California Girls" maybe it was kind of ahead of its time. And
I
yeah,
would actually definitely agree with that. Yeah, I
yeah,
definitely think it was ahead of its time, especially if you thought "Help Me, Rhonda" was more popular back then. I
yeah.
think "California Girls" was definitely ahead of its time. Like,
Certainly only for music, nothing else.
yeah, yeah, just for the song, the music, taste
Yeah. What
about it.
did you think?
I mean, come on, it was. If I had to have a favorite on this album, it's this one. Easy favorite, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's a classic Beach Boys. Unlike other songs on this album, it sounds complete. You said it right. I thought there was really good mix and influx of like vocals and instruments on
Mhm,
California Girls. Just overall,
mhm,
it felt like the right song and just kind of everything put together for in this album. This is just what it did right
mhm. I love where the
overall.
song is positioned too. I think
Yeah.
it's a very good segue, especially considering that the next few tracks get a little interesting, in my opinion. And this kind of caps off the. I'd say the whole album is extremely summary, but I'd say the first half, all the way up till this point, is probably the most like summer esque, and sort of like that breezy sound that we were referring to
Yeah.
earlier. So I think it's a nice little cap off, which leads me into the next track. Mateo, what did you think? Let Him Run Wild.
Let him run wild. Uh this to me this was just another song that was just fine. Nothing
Okay.
crazy. I enjoyed it, I guess. Honestly, I don't remember much of anything about Let 'Em Run Wild other than what I wrote down.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just even trying to like recall anything about the song, but I'm just blanking. I
Yeah,
don't remember anything. What was yours? What were your thoughts?
this is my least favorite on the album.
Okay, that's
I think the
fair.
vocals here are honestly pretty subpar for the Beach Boys. Sounds a little screechy, and it's not. It's kind of weird because I kind of wrote great vocals at the beginning, and then later on it's like this song gets kind of screechy at the end, and it's not exactly the most enjoyable. They kind of distance themselves from the pop sound here, which could be interesting with the Beach Boys. They've done stuff that's a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to use the word refined, but it's something that's a little less poppy and going a little bit more into, I guess, where rock might have been headed in the next decade. So it kind of tries to do that, but it doesn't fit well with the rest of the album. And even if I look at it as an individual track, it feels just kind of, yeah, this is one I might say it's kind of incomplete. Doesn't feel like a fully formed out track. It feels a little sparse.
Yeah.
So yeah, my least favorite. And I can understand why you might kind of forget about this one. It's pretty forgettable and not very enjoyable. And in fact, some of that criticism maybe kind of goes into the next one for me. You're So Good to Me, but I'll let you start first, Mateo. Go ahead.
Honestly, I thought You're So Good to Me was a good song. It sounded funny enough to me. This song sounded like it should be in the background of like a Black Bear diner. Does that make any sense, or just any other diner?
Yeah, it does. But that's the Beach Boys. They play all the time in diners.
Yeah. I did want to mention this. I don't know if you also got this, but the instruments used, especially towards the end, it kind of sounded familiar to like Karma Chameleon by Culture Club, like the 1983 song. Did you get that at all?
That is. I have no clue what that is.
Okay, but you know it. I'll play it for you later. But
okay,
it's a good song. Karma Chameleon is. This wasn't a terrible song. It's actually probably You're So Good to Me was probably one of my more liked songs on the album. Fun fact about it, I guess Brian Wilson, his parts were mostly overdubbed or something. I'd seen that on Genius. Something about how like he recorded it later on when the rest of the Beach Boys were like away or on tour or something. He remained home. But what were your thoughts?
I don't want to make it sound like I really hated it. I didn't. I enjoy this track as well. I think it's 100 times better than Let Him Run Wild for sure. It's a little bit different from the rest of the album though, and it has a good percussion tune to it. It's a little less tuneful than some of the other ones and kind of pushes those boundaries for the Beach Boys, which I can see why you might appreciate, Mateo. But also not like strong enough to make me really feel like it's very memorable. So kind of mixed on this one.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, if I'm being honest, other than California Girls, I don't think really any of these songs are that memorable. That is kind of why I said I feel like this is like an ambience kind of music. Like I'll just be hearing in the back of like some diner late at night, Beach Boys.
All right.
Too memorable, at least maybe not too many from this album.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, Mateo, next track, I think we're both going to use the same word. So on the count of 3, I want to see if we can use that word together. Yeah. All right. This track's called Summer Means New Love. 3, 2, 1. Interlude.
Right? Like, that's what I wrote. This is the interlude, right, dude? Yeah. All instrumental. Like, I liked it, though.
I liked this interlude.
You mentioned...
fantastic.
I thought it was really good. Like, dude, if California Girls wasn't on this album, and I love instrumental, like no vocals on tracks. I love those type of music. This would honestly be my favorite. This would honestly be my favorite if California Girls wasn't on this. I just feel like California Girls has more re-listenability and more like appeal to people. But this was good.
I know. And I knew you would. I knew it was like whenever I hear this, it was like I know Mateo's gonna like this. Yeah, it's terrific, and I actually think I like where it comes in the album. I kind of like that it's done in the middle. It kind of is a nice change of pace towards the end. The positioning can't really put words to it, but
I would have liked it like a song or two earlier. I think right after California Girls to give it that little kind of breather.
Yeah, that would have been nice too, I guess.
I think that would have been nicer. Just because we'll get into the other song, the 2 last songs after, but like...
Yeah, I know. I'll just say this. What I think why I like it, the position is, it kind of sounds like end of summer. Like the sound is kind of like the end of summer. And it sounds like something that could, Mateo, be using a vaporwave sample someday? It has that.
Yeah, I guess, kind of. It could. Usually with vaporwave sample, maybe kind of in a mix.
Yeah.
Like a mix of Beach Boys songs. It definitely could be like
maybe
that for a vaporwave. Yeah.
Which mix reminds me, by the way, I don't know if you've heard it or if any of our listeners have, but I highly suggest checking out the California Girls remix, which has been produced, I guess, by whoever's running the Beach Boys label these days. I have no idea. But there's a remix version, and it sounds fairly nice, actually. I would definitely suggest that.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is that all you had to say about Summer Means New Love?
Yeah, I think. Look, even if you're not going to listen to the whole album, check this track out by itself. It's unique and it's fun to listen to for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go to the 11th one. I'm
That's
bugged that my old man. You go into this. You go into this before I lay anything into this.
Look, okay. Obviously, it's weird. It's weird to have this at the end.
Yeah.
It's weird to have this at all, but it's totally fine. Like it still shows off the good vocal range. The piano's kind of getting hashed down upon here, but it's fine.
What?
I don't mind it. I think it's kind of funny, actually. Kind of weird, but funny.
Good vocal range. Rishabh, you couldn't see, and obviously the audience couldn't see, but I was sipping water. As soon as you said good vocal range, I almost spat that out. No shot. This was my easy least favorite track. I'm bugged at my old man. I'm bugged at the Beach Boys, dude. No way. I thought there were scratchy vocals.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun of it, right? Because like the whole time you've got these harmonies going throughout the album, and then at the end you have like this scratchiness.
It hurt my ears. Like I'll give them points for whatever they're trying to go for, but they definitely missed. Like this, I'm bugged at my old man felt super dated.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
kind
overall,
of.
Like, here's a line from it. I think he was talking about his old man or his dad or whatever. He said, "But he jerked my phone right out of the wall." Definitely dated. Like, there's nothing salvageable about this song.
Oh my gosh! Sorry, the Beach Boys didn't have cell phones, Mateo.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Sorry, they didn't have the new iPhone.
Glasses of water. Like, no.
So, also, I want to ask about that. So, in the track, they left him breadcrumbs and a glass of water and locked him in a room? That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
weird, but
I don't know. This is weird. It's a bad track. It's weird. You don't need to listen to this. You don't really listen to this whole album. Only a couple songs.
All right. Okay. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that wraps it up, and then there's the final track, "And Your Dreams Come True." Rishabh, what were your thoughts on this?
It's the closing track. It's got a little acapella harmony. It's fine. It's a closing track. I
was like, lullaby ? Like, it kind of felt like a "When You Wish Upon a Star" ripoff.
Okay.
I thought it was a good album ender. I guess we kind of agree on that.
It's just a little album ender. It's not really fully formed. It's just like a vocal sample almost. Like I think very inconsequential.
Yeah, inconsequential. I thought it was totally forgettable.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
but
whatever.
Good vocals as usual, but nothing to write.
Maybe not as usual, but you definitely don't want to write home about it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get into our album reviews, Mateo. Let's just get your strong passionate opinions out of the way. Yeah, go for it. I want to hear this. I do want to hear this.
You know what? I'm gonna save my rating out of 10 for after. Like we'll say later. But okay, for the full album review, it felt summery, but at least last time you said it felt this is like a nautical album. I didn't feel that at all.
No,
I do agree. I do agree. The first half was definitely a lot more breezy, as you put it. That was honestly my least favorite half too. Like, I don't know. I think honestly, unless you're a Beach Boys fan, like fanatic, you do not have to do a full listen through of this. Again, the first half of this album was, I'll put it plain, it was just kind of bad. It sort of picked up for me, but really only for one or two songs. California Girls was the obvious star of this album. I know I'll for sure go back and listen to that track, or Summer Means New Love. Possibly You're So Good to Me. That was kind of the hidden one that I'd never heard of before. I was like, this actually isn't too bad, but definitely no other tracks on this album. It's overall, to me, it felt very generic. Yeah, I think they tried, but they missed on this one. Being honest.
I would actually wonder what like the band's opinion of this album is, given the history behind it. It sounds like, I mean, it's not like they absolutely hated doing the breezy kind of tracks. I don't know like exactly how they felt about this album in particular. I know that they were trying to go to a more mature sound at the time, but I don't think they at the same time I don't think they hated doing these kind of tracks either. And they did put in a lot of work and ingenuity into a lot of these tracks. So
do you know which album this was of theirs? Is this the 9th? Their 9th studio album?
That's a good question.
That's what I had read online.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, okay. I think it is the 9th. Honestly, that explains why they're so tired in this album.
Okay, I wouldn't put it that way.
Like I know you're gonna have a lot of stuff to say about when I give you the rating, so I'm just gonna give you my final rating now.
Yeah,
I've basically said everything I can about this album. For summer days, parentheses, and summer nights, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10.
Whoa, that's so low.
Yeah, 4 out of 10. Honestly, originally it was gonna be a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
But then because I was like, you know what, California Girls kind of needs to pump it up, right? But I'm like, I've just heard so much better, and I know the Beach Boys can just do better. That's the thing. That's why I'm stuck with 4 out of 10. I know they can do better. They just didn't. Not with this album. Not at all.
Yeah, look. I know it's not a Pet Sounds, right? It's not quite as refined as Pet Sounds. But at the same time, I think these kind of tracks can be done well. And if I were to point someone to, a good pop rock album being done well, I would have no problem pointing them to, of course, first Pet Sounds, but then also Summer Days and Summer Nights. I think, especially on the more pop side, it's not as much of a rock album as like Pet Sounds maybe. This is definitely more pop. There's more harmonies. They're hitting more falsetto notes in their vocals. There's all kinds of different sort of like breezy sort of subject material. It's very much on brand with Surfin' USA as an album and as a track. It's on brand with what they used to be, but it's still done well, I think. And the way that I always imagine this album is it's melting ice cream on a hot summer day. I love listening to it in the summertime, especially, or in the wintertime when I'm missing summer. Very summery, if that's not clear. And I like how they integrate all those different things into making this very like I said earlier, Americana summer album. Is it all gonna age well? Has it aged well? No, it hasn't. Definitely hasn't. But musically speaking, I will say, there is stuff here that I think people can still look to in developing tracks even today. So I think they did set up an important precedent with songs like California Girls or Girl Don't Tell Me, or even, I'll go as far as saying it, Help Me Rhonda. It's not a great song, but it's still a very pop, peppy song. And I think there's a lot of artists these days who maybe might not even be able to get to the point where Help Me Rhonda was, or might look to that as a reference. So for me, Mateo, I'd take your rating and multiply that top number by 2.
Whoa, 8?
I'm escalating this to an 8.
Oh my! This doesn't deserve an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
I mean, it
does.
doesn't.
But it does.
I like. I don't know. I like kind of get where you're coming from with the ice cream analogy, but like, no, Beach Boys has better summery ice cream melting songs. Like, 8 out of 10 for California Girls, sure, but not for anything else.
Yes, like, I see you're more of a Pet Sounds person, which I was thinking of picking that at one point, but I really wanted to talk about this one. I think
I will say that's fair. That's fair to get the junk out of the way first before we go into more better stuff later on.
Speaking of potentially better stuff, I'm not going to vouch for that statement. Mateo, this brings us to the close of Summer Days and Summer Nights. Take your big breath of relief, and I'll start getting nervous now because, as I said, speaking of potentially better stuff, most likely not.
Most
We
likely,
have to.
definitely.
We have to, unfortunately, know what your next album pick is, and
Oh my
I'm
god.
not looking forward to this at all, especially
No.
given what you've been doing the past few picks has not landed with me.
I think this one might land with you. If I'm being honest, I think we might have even talked about this album before, but if we haven't, I definitely think you won't know anything about this album.
Oh,
And
great.
it's kind of short. Basically, I'll just say it. My album choice is Mother Earth's Plantasia by Mort Garson.
I don't know what
It's
those words are.
Mother Earth's Plantasia, or just Plantasia for short. It's a 1976 album.
No. Okay,
By
70s.
Mort
Interesting.
Garson. It's very 70s.
Okay.
Garson uses like this Moog synthesizer. It's all instrumental. It's a fairly short album. It's like around 30 minutes. But honestly, it's probably one of my favorites. And here's the thing. This wasn't even a mean pick. I think you'll actually like it. Like this album is like, best way I can put it, plant music.
Okay.
That's the best way I can put it. I don't think you're gonna hate it though, Rishabh.
Okay.
I know
I'm
definitely excited. I'm definitely excited.
I'm keeping an open mind and looking forward to discussing it with
Yeah.
you. Kind of.
I mean, I just felt, you said the Beach Boys was nautical. It wasn't.
Okay, to clarify, I said the beach is nautical. Okay.
Well, whatever. We had the past two albums were, wet and wild and fun and summery.
So we're going to plants now.
Let's go up. What does water do? Gives life to plants.
Is that what this is going to become? Or is the next one going to be related to rain, precipitation? I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. The one after this is going to be your choice. But
that's true.
Mother Earth's Plantasia. I'm excited, Rishabh. Yeah.
Okay. If you say so.
Definitely.
All right. I think we better save that fiending for next episode. So thanks for joining me, Mateo. Thanks for listening to Beach Boys with me.
Of course.
Always
thank you,
fun.
Craig. Always fun.
Craig. I want to thank all the listeners for listening to this episode.
Thanks for picking this very peculiar, not peculiar, but
peculiarly good.
Just meh album, Rishabh.
All right. We'll see everybody in the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.